All right, now let's take it a step further past breathing and let's talk a little bit about alignment because it's extremely important. We want to have a positive relationship between our thoracic diaphragm and our pelvic diaphragm. Why? Because as our thoracic diaphragm expands and descends, it can function optimally and actually be able to descend as it should when our pelvic diaphragm is aligned underneath. If we are living in extension with our ribs flared and our pelvis dumped forward, we aren't in optimal alignment for proper function. By having our diaphragms in a positive relationship, we are also able to manage and distribute pressure better in the core canister. So with every breath that we take, we are able to manage that pressure better by just simply having better alignment. Oftentimes we get into an anterior or a posterior pelvic tilt, which I want to clarify this. Neither of them are bad. We want to be able and we need to be able to access both of these positions. We just want to try our best at not getting stuck in these positions. We want to attempt to live more in a neutral position while still being able to move through all of them. Accessing them and moving through them, it's very important. So how do we accomplish a stacked position? I'm sure you guys, if you have followed me on Instagram or been a part of my programs for quite some time, the stacked position should be of no news to you. Two simple cues I always give first is to fully exhale the ribs back. Remember, the more we exhale, the more we compress. So the ribs can fully come back into space. Exhale them back and make sure that your weight is over your heels. Don't hang out on the front of your limbs like we often want to do as moms to offset that weight change, right? Then, if you are in extension, give a small tuck of the pelvis. If you are a constant glute clencher, wiggle the tension out and let the tension go. But oftentimes during pregnancy, we tend to start living in an overly extended position. So we want to tuck the pelvis just a tad to find a more neutral position and not go into a posterior pelvic tilt. But when we tuck the pelvis underneath us, we don't want to make it happen by gripping our cheeks. We want to utilize our abdominals, our lower core, to orient the pelvis underneath us. And it's the same as our ribs. We don't want to grip the ribs down to bring them in. We want to simply exhale them back using our respiration. The stack principle is extremely important to understand not only for everyday life, pregnant or not, but especially to be mindful of this during exercise. Why? Because when we do movements like pressing overhead or hinging or squatting, whatever the movement is, by keeping a more stacked position, the diaphragms, like we've talked about before, can function together with one another as designed to help manage pressure, breathe optimally, and prevent further compensations. So think about as we progress through pregnancy, and if I were to sit and do overhead presses, if I'm constantly doing it with my ribs flared out and my lumbar spine in extension, then I'm only furthering this position throughout my pregnancy. Not only just during exercise, but just during everyday life, because I'm essentially training myself further into that position, which is exactly what we don't want. It's also going to put my midline and my pelvic floor in a more vulnerable position. And that's exactly what we don't want. As we press the hips forward, say in overhead press or in deadlifts, kettlebell swings, etc. So here, and I come up and press the hips through while clenching the glutes, we're putting added pressure on the front side of our pelvic floor, along with over-gripping and holding tension on the posterior side. So all the clickbait videos that you see online about clenching your cheeks as you do any type of movement, just no. Stop, okay? Hello leaking or risk of prolapse when we constantly and consistently perform movements like this. So let this be known that if you do movements where you simply feel like you cannot perform it in a relatively good stacked position, or your body may not even be able to access that position, then we need to find a different variation where you can access it. And you may be asking, what do I mean by that? Here's an example. When I back squat, my upper body wants to come forward. I always butt wink at the bottom when I try to get ass to grass. Why? Because I have a really tight back. And my hips hold a lot of tension, which makes it really hard to keep a stacked position. My core loses engagement and I tend to send negative pressure down. So instead, I do front squats, oftentimes with my heels elevated. A front squat with a wedge helps me to breathe into my back, my posterior chain. So I'm able to keep my core engaged. And by adding a heel wedge, I can nutate my sacrum, which gives me more depth. This promotes that stack position with my tension and compensation problems. So it's not that I need to stop squatting, just choose a variation that my body can actually benefit and strengthen from. So when we can find this positive relationship between the two diaphragms, the stack can help us move through exercises and daily life, aiding our bodies to function in the best way possible, not just hindering it. It's pretty cool, right? So starting today, I want you to start practicing your stack, not just in your exercise routine and the movements that you do within this program, but while you stand and cook dinner, while you fold laundry, while you talk to your friends. Just start noticing your alignment. And day by day, we'll make small changes that will, I promise you, lead to big results.